Rashid, you can ask him
I
a
just
question now.
got a update that Germany is going to buy gas and rubles, so they didn't capitulate it to Putin.
See, when they tried to sanction Putin is a very smart guy. See, he flipped it on him, and now he's not going to sell gas to countries unless they buy it in rubles. He's getting rid of the dollar. This is going to have devastating effects on America. You're absolutely.
That
I'm glad to hear that, Rashid, because it
Hmm.
wasn't 100. He hadn't. The chancellor hadn't resolved the issue, but that was the right thing to do.
I,
This
um,
what
this
else could he do?
let me interject 1 second
Well,
on that
he'd have
situation.
to let his people freeze to death, which is you're not going to make him real popular.
I had an inside source telling me that leading up to this, when France and Germany and the EU made all this pompous talk about them not going to capitulate to Russia, and they refused to do it. Someone told me that they had already reached out to Vladimir Putin to ask him about the intricacies of this. And so they had already capitulated, but they did not want to seem as weak as they are. They didn't want to show their hand to their own public, and because the outrage would have been tremendous, because it was following America's policies which put them in this position.
Well, what is being reported here, and I'm overwhelmingly encouraged with this development, is a triumph of practicality over ideology. In other words, people have to live, they have to eat, they have to be able to heat their homes, they have to have gasoline for their cars. So this was a practical decision that benefits the people. The ideologues, who are really zealots, would have not wanted that to happen. In fact, this has really destroyed much of the rationale that has underlay what's going on. I mean, look, it's ridiculous to fault Putin for taking care of business when you have a major threat to to uh, to Russia. Just consider. There's a wonderful cartoon I'm looking at. I strongly condemn Russia's attack on Ukraine, and in the background, there's a sack full of skulls labeled Syria, Iraq, Libya, Somalia. The U.S. does this all the time, but we do it for bloodthirsty reasons. Russia's doing it in the name of its own national security. Our intrusions in Syria, Iraq, Libya, Somalia had nothing to do with the national security of the United States. These are remote nations. They're not anywhere near our borders. In fact, they're thousands of miles away. Ukraine is on the border of Russia. Russia could not allow Ukraine to become a NATO nation. And remember, that was essentially the final straw when they were talking about making Ukraine a NATO nation. Remember, way back when, the solemn promise was made not to encroach 1 inch to the east. James Baker, the Secretary of State at the time under Ronald Reagan, Mikhail Gorbachev agreed there'd be no politicalization of these countries that would be newly sovereign nations, and no attempt to militarize them or turn them into NATO nations. And we violated that again and again and again and again and again, taking NATO from 14 to 30 countries. Well, it's ridiculous. So, what you're reporting here, Rashid, is extremely important to what's going on there in Europe. And I would even submit it's transformational. This is a big deal. I'm very glad you brought that news to the show.